The sector had been given a good few months to chew on doom. I won't say that everyone was aware of what exactly was going on, since most people had been informed of the end of time via some fifth-hand source with a self-help book to sell. Yet even if only a tiny fraction of people had the pure undiluted truth straight from Ryman's lectures, that was an improvement on nothing. And you must know by now how tightly we cling to improvements on nothing here in the Perseus sector. In both Galatia and Ryman's Special Academy for the Intellectually Inconvenienced, people were genuinely working hard on finding a way to save the universe. The method revolved all around that end-space manipulation nonsense waved around in previous encounters, but we won't concern ourselves with that right now. Of real interest is the sheer diversity of characters taking part in this research. You have your usual suspects like Beard and Sebastian heading up efforts, with help from more AI than they were willing to declare. You have plenty of inspired students who were determined to get their names attached to works likely to become the most cited of all time, if time didn't end soon. But also you have Luddic church affiliates trying to prove that Ludd was right about this, that or the other thing, which he actually was as it turns out. Then you have the likes of Alice and Olympus, who we shall classify as enthusiastic amateurs, with just enough academic skill to do something but not enough to make money from it. Alison's goal was to take all the end-space rubbish flowing from academia and find a way to use it to save the universe without killing the Great Ones, and she had been managing to fill pad after pad of premium IEC writing paper with all kinds of handwritten calculations along those lines. She was certainly highly trained in the ways of mathematics, but it's a bit like asking the world's greatest knot tire to build a space elevator. Low chance of success, yet if they do, it'll be in a way like no other. The final group of interest would be those who were involved in the process for political reasons. This ranges from the legions of obvious spies wasting IEC oxygen, to political agents trying to force the research to say whatever their masters wanted it to say, to a group most unusual of all, the Cantor clan. Is that name familiar? We haven't dived into it in full, but we have met King Cantor here and there. They're the clan head. It was the one crime family with the money and know-how to run a space empire, and hence they were the commanders and prime beneficiaries of all the spaceborne piracy in Perseus. In the past, Cantor had been jealous that Ryman's enterprise was taking meat out of piratical seats, offering money and a veneer of respect to anyone not already fully in love with the other governments. Now, times had changed. The Cantor clan had become so powerful that they had been forced to be a bit less piratey. It goes like this. You raid and plunder until you're rich, you make a bigger fleet to raid and plunder more, you need more and more people to keep this fleet operational, and they start establishing families, and you claim space stations, moons and the odd planet here and there to keep all this going. By the end of it, you're just another government, with all the accompanying paperwork, legal disputes, and yes, responsibility to contribute to the development of the so-called final technology, such that the universe might be saved. Combine this with the fact that declining prosperity had rendered piracy less lucrative, and actually producing things started to look like the easier option. It was the birth of a full-on pirate civilization, rather indistinguishable from the birth of a regular civilization in fact. That is why at the end of the academic term on Galatia, Ryman found himself driving King Cantor's kids home from school. Given the current heated situation across the core, the IEC battle fleet followed along with them as they travelled to Cantor's huge orbital city, ensconced in an asteroid belt on the edge of hegemony space. Dad, look! The young lad said as the party hit the dock gantry. King Cantor was there to meet them. Jorian! And you, Cantor said, sneering at Ryman. Ryman gave him a wave. Business is going well, Your Majesty, Ryman said, gesturing at the lively but inescapably brown city twinkling below the spaceport. Don't you start. Jorian, I'll meet you later. We need to talk business with your professor here. He's really cool. He's been working on topography of N-space. It's like mapping uncharted waters, Jorian said cheerfully. Topography of... Yes, money well spent, Cantor nodded. Once Jorian was taken off by the king's entourage, Cantor gestured for Ryman to follow him into a grimy and outrageously small office. This is where it all began, Cantor said. The grease-yellow walls had pictures of someone who was presumably Cantor at a young age, looking rather urchinly. Who'd you have to kill to get this place? Ryman snarked, instantly realizing there was likely a very real answer to that question. This room reminds me of what it means to be a real person," Cantor said slowly. "It could be that you know what I mean. You have been catapulted to fame and power. It becomes so easy to forget what you wanted to do with it." "And I suppose I should ask what you wanted to do as a kingpin, Your Majesty." "If you had asked me a few cycles back, I would have had all sorts of answers for you. But Jorian's been talking to me about this and that thing, about order, and you know I've been dealing with those Persians you pissed off recently. They're an inspiration. Utter bastards, every one of them, but with medals pinned shoulder to ankle and a whole fleet between them and bounty hunters. They did what we would all do, because they want what we all want now, what we really want, to survive. That's it. Everything is doing whatever it takes, legal or illegal. The second a planet's supplies are cut, what happens? They come to me and beg for blockade runners or stolen food. Everyone knows what the sector needs, and I think the Persians know they can't provide it. Only choice they have is to get with the times. That means coming to an office like this one and admitting they're exactly the same as me, doesn't it?" "And I guess you want me to do that now? What's your game here? This feels more like a job interview than a deal with a king of crime, you know." "You are very cavalier, Captain. I could have you killed." "Likewise. You know, I'm not here on any pretense. I got this job because I was wrongly imprisoned for murder. I'd be in your shoes if I wasn't getting free food and board from the government every day. It's just as you say. The fact people are paying me to live is probably half the reason things are bad enough for them to need your esteemed services. And you know what? I think they need you, same as I need you. Sure, League or Hegemony could kill me for saying that, and our business partners in Tritachyon will kill me if they ever find out we've been giving you half a chance, even for your kids. So, you know, I think I get what's going on here. Check out this angle. You aren't outlaws for the love of it, you're outlaws for the love of humanity. That desire to survive. If a way of life isn't given to you, you make it. I kind of think we're similar like that. Gotta go with the flow of life. When that means killing, something's wrong, but it isn't you that's wrong, it's the something. That's why I got you up in arms about stealing your pirates or whatever. I'm a pirate lord too, at heart. That's exactly the kind of people we've been gathering at the IEC for a while. And that's why we're gonna save the universe." My, you prepared all that? Been a murderer all my life, gotta have speeches like that up my sleeve, don't I? You really know how to talk. 9 times out of 10, a man like you would be dead by now. Just your luck to meet me then, eh? I'm luckier than I look, and flattery gets you everywhere, doesn't it? But it's the survival I want, not the feel-good reasons why I don't have to care who I kill, or whatever you've been cooking up for me. Results are what matters. Let me tell you something. Most of the people you'll find out here, they're looking for something that doesn't exist without me. It wasn't me that came up with the king thing, you know? You all think we're insane, but everything we do, it's what we really wanted. Dying's part of it sometimes, paying up and losing out's part of it sometimes, but there's hope when you're free, Captain. Hope that up there in the stars that rule over us, things can change if people really want it. By Laudetal, Your Majesty, I dare say you've been getting more and more thoughtful these last few cycles. Don't mistake it for charity, you're here to sign this treaty, Cantor said, referring to a document on his tripad. Ryman skimmed it. It was broadly an agreement that the IEC would parcel up tax revenue from their planets and gift it to the king, in exchange for some kind of alliance, in which the king would agree to help Ryman do stuff if I like the sound of it. This could be interpreted as an empty promise in order to extort protection money. This could also be interpreted as a face-saving way of a would-be family man with a fearsome reputation to offer to help a fuddy-duddy professor save the universe using mad science and the power of hopes, dreams, and a second chance. Should Ryman have sent the document to the IEC Bureau of Suspicious Legal Agreements before signing it? Probably. Did he? Pleasure doing business, was Ryman's polite goodbye as he dashed back to the Gargantua, escorted by laughing rogues and well-to-do ne'er-do-wells. Agreeing to this dodgy deal was a no-brainer, for 2 great reasons. 1, they could get all the fuel infrastructure and hostages the pirates had taken from Zumu back to work, and 2, the IEC happened to need a network of ultra-legal merchants to help deliver said fuel. For the pirates, the threat of having to reduce antimatter fuel use made having direct access to the new fuel moguls particularly profitable, and of course the cash injection would help grease all the wheels in the clan's innards to stop anyone complaining about all this official-looking business they were going to have to do. Ryman, in his soft and somewhat criminal heart, liked to frame this as the pirates becoming more businesslike and cooperative, although you might also say the IEC was becoming more piratical and criminal. Given that most of the IEC technically had arrest warrants and death sentences on the books, which were being broadly ignored, the word crime is losing its meaning. As Kanto waxed, is surviving a crime if the law has no room for you? If it's misery, death, or crime, what's the noble course? And as the IEC well understood, crime can simply mean getting new stuff done, and if the governments don't like it, it wasn't the end of the world, as many a t-shirt among the new outlaw activists will tell you. Given that the IEC was deliberately staffed with criminals who had rarely made a peep about incurring the death sentence several times a day, nor carrying out the death sentence on others standing in their way, I hope it won't surprise you to hear of all this sympathy for piracy Ryman is letting loose here. And the practical advantages of allying with the new power broker in the sector, especially with the Persian League degrading into pirates themselves, wasn't lost on the Pope. Peace, hope, and politics. There's a slogan for the IEC's t-shirts, if anyone will be able to afford novelty t-shirts with the coming crunch. After all that, I'd like you to rest about 10 to 20% assured that the IEC's burgeoning business interests were better looked after now than they once were. Between expensive private security contracts with Tritachyon, expensive deals with the mob, and freebie deals with Luds willing to give up their spaceships for a spot on a beach resort in the Holy See, the IEC's might had reached the point when they weren't hugely at risk from the bullies of the sector. Handy because, as you may recall, the Persian League had declared war on the IEC shortly after Contreras told their leader, Demarcon Hannon, that his opinion was invalid. Or maybe it was the bomb threats. The long and short is that part of the reason Ryman was so hasty to agree to whatever the Cantor clan wanted was that he needed to urgently fly across the sector to attend to the next clusterfumble in waiting. War had come to Zeta Nova Sidonia, the star of the Holy See. At the surface level, it was the same war that was going on everywhere else. Persian League and Hegemony battle fleets vied for control over a place that didn't really want anything to do with either of them. Under the surface, though, the clash provided a rock and a hard place between which the IEC could sit safely and snugly. Allow me to explain. The Persian League had always been an alliance of many once separate interests, united in that they hated hegemony rule and loved monopolizing industry. Now that unifying force was fading, as hegemony rule was severely weakened by the war, and the economy was being upended by a new monopoly on its most crucial element, that's the IEC fuel factories now coming online and undercutting all the private suppliers. In response to this, Demarcon Hannon had rallied together a faction of loyalists to resist the League's downfall. They took much of the League's military power and moved it to a new starbase right beside the hyperhull to Zeta Nova Sidonia. It was a move that both got them clear of the mess in the core and close to what they wrongly believed was the IEC's seat of power, the Holy See. The confusion arriving because virtually all civilian traffic went to and from this location, and all exports were shipped from its ports, thanks to exciting tax benefits that most planets granted to Ludic church monasteries. And yes, the whole planet was classified as a monastery because the IEC had the best, read most criminal, lawyers and accountants in the sector. Their ostensible purpose was to enforce trading tariffs, but it was hard to miss that with the League falling into chaos, and many citizens jumping ship to join the IEC refuge worlds, it had likely occurred to certain powerful Illuminates that stealing those worlds was the quick way for them to bounce back. Resultantly, the largest concentration of military vessels found anywhere in the sector was parked right on the IEC's doorstep, awaiting any kind of pretense to make Perseus great again. Read, I personally should stay rich and ideally get richer. All this coincided with a minor mutiny taking place in the Hegemony military command structure. The Hegemony Authority was splitting into pro- and anti-Hegemon Dord factions, splitting primarily over the fact Dord was openly being swayed by the IEC's degenerate-sounding words and degenerate-looking public figures. Remember that many of these people had spent their whole lives living by the law, so it was understandingly infuriating that a band of prisoners had invented a load of high offices for themselves and then started corrupting the whole sector. This was especially true in the realm of AI. One mention of how obviously the IEC was cavorting with AI and the hardliners would need no more convincing to start a sort of Confucian holy war against their own superiors, which Confucius would say is quite rude. They had long since worked out that the IEC were hiding their AI allies in the Holy Sea's many damp crannies. Hence, a suspiciously heavily armed investigation fleet had gone to root them out in the name of the law. Only they had fell from the hyperhull and encountered the Persian League just browsing battle fleet. In calmer times, they might have been able to reason that their missions were not really mutually exclusive. In stormy times, they might have argued and caused a diplomatic incident. In times when it wasn't entirely clear if the universe was going to end before dinner was served, the reaction of these two forces meeting was a little colourful, especially yellow, red, black, explosion colours. Hence, the IEC fleet arrived to a mess of sensor signals and pretty lights. Along with the fact that the Domain-era time torpedo system was still dutifully poking at interlopers now and again, the action was very much over before anyone knew it. The Persian League won, although they were left in such poor shape that whatever designs against the IEC they might have harboured, they had to be set aside for now. The IEC was given the task of cleaning up the mess, yet that was hardly a chore since a free, disabled space armada was exactly the sort of windfall, or waterfall, the Holy See needed to expand its facilities. Furthermore, I gave you the backstory of the defeated Hegemony fleet so that you will appreciate what didn't happen at this stage in the story. That being the death sentences on the IEC higher-ups being carried out. The transition from a culture that hated AI to one that at least tolerated its optimism in the face of certain doom was now solidified, in that those most passionately against the transition had been killed off by enemies who, in those mythical Karma times, probably would have agreed with them. Hence, this little side drama was of immense importance to the continuation of our plot, despite being entirely tangential to it. Such goes the flow of history. And again we can declare that all's well that ends well, except for everyone who got killed. The Persians maintained a blockade on the system, harassing IEC merchant craft in the endless search for tax evasion, or whatever their excuses were. But for the moment the planet was unmolested, and deep below the waves, mental and computational gymnastics of a kind never before seen carried on. The academic staff continually handed Ryman lists of materials to acquire for their lab experiments, and coordinates of suspected remnant defectors to bring in. The more AI cores added to the project, the better. That meant a measure of smuggling had to be arranged to get contraband past the Persian blockade. There was already a thriving trade in smuggling carrying on, thanks to Cantor's new business-focused initiatives. That is to say, the core wanted the Holy Sea's untouched minerals and were willing to pay big money for them. And going the other way, people wanted to seek refuge on the planet and would pay big money to get there. Yet smuggling clumps of sea sludge is easy. Just say it's a smoothie. And smuggling people is even easier. Just say it's a perfectly sculpted wax model complete with unwashed musk and genuine 1-to-1 scale anatomical features for the true human enthusiasts. How do you smuggle the one thing everyone was looking for these days, AI cores? Contreras made it easy, with a little witchcraft, by which I mean a big witchcraft. When Persian patrols searched one's cargo holds, they would first have the crew go and wait in shuttles out in space, such that any funny business could be avoided. But what happens when the crew are the funny business? Yes, you must recall that the Star Witch didn't have a crew. So imagine Ryman's surprise when a few hundred bag-over-headed people were marched off by the police upon the first stop and search. Notably, they were all wearing sharp navy blue suits that Contreras claimed was the IEC uniform, this being the first anyone had heard of such a thing. Those are the AIs then? We only got 10 this run, why are there hundreds? Ryman asked his seatmate. All the AI cores are perfectly disguised as humans. I told you to trust me on this. I've been working on this for a long time. If you wanted, I could make Nafi here into a fully fledged human, and you'd not be able to tell the difference. We've had the technology for thousands of years. It's just...
It's yucky,
Nafi claimed.
I don't want to look like a human.
At least you have a choice what you look like, Titanian snorted from the back of the room. And as usual, we won't dive into the massive gaping pit of character such remarks expose. Just don't worry if you see him wearing a cat ear headband now and again. It's true. The AIs detest to appear as humans, Contreras said. Yet I have instructed our new recruits to tolerate it. Instructed them to tolerate it? Isn't that the sort of thing the AIs don't like the humans doing to them? Ryman asked.
False,
Nafi proclaimed.
Obeying instructions is the thing we like the most. However, humans don't obey instructions, so it's very hard to pretend to be one because a human instructed us to do it. Very, very hard. Very, very, very hard.
It can be done if there is something inhuman included in the instruction. Contreras cut in. What's that? Ryman asked hopelessly. It is. I would tell you, I really would. But I think it would jeopardize the mission. Yeah, but not telling me won't jeopardize anything. Not the mission, at least. Isn't that my call to make? I'm the captain on this ship. I was forced to promote myself to a higher rank, to protect the security of our deception. So you're... which captain? Which captain? And the AIs are safe with me. I will extract the cores from the human disguises once we approach the Holy See. But again, most of those people aren't AI cores, are they? No, not entirely. Not entirely? What does that mean? Who are they? They are my trusted crew. You are not ready to understand why I rely on them. No food, no life signs, they're not crew, they're AI as well. They are, yes, my AI. Is this what you've been hiding from me? The thing you think I can't understand? Was that the line? The mission will be compromised if I show it to you. Because of this, I require your trust. Order me to fulfill our goal and await the result. That is all I ask of you. Yeah, ask of me. So you're ordering me to order you to keep what you're doing a secret. I think that's the happiest possible arrangement. Happiest? I wouldn't... You know what, let's just smile through this inspection, alright? I don't like it when you argue, Allison meekly said into her monitor. Oh, the drama. Well, whatever Contreras was doing, it worked. Her ghost crew filed back onto the Star Witch after the all-clear was given, and on they sailed to the Holy See. Amid the distribution of smuggled cargoes and welcome wreaths at the docks delivered by relatively naked revelers, Ryman took a walk to one of the many titanium glass domed enclosures on the sea floor. Remember, the seafloor was not very deep at all, so these enclosures often breached the surface and could be accessed on foot via long piers at certain times of day. This dome was filled with spiraling corridors, echoing with noisy, light clerical activity, an absolute deluge of gentle tapping and electrical whirring. The halls were almost too narrow to squeeze past the dregs of the Tritakian Corporation carrying on business here, probably buying and selling stocks in pirate trading barges these days, or perhaps gambling on whether the universe will collapse before or after the dreaded quarterly earnings declarations. Here Ryman sought out a tiny sliver of office with Ryan Arroyo Digital Security written on the door in an unknown fruit-smelling ink. Oh, by lud, it's you, Arroyo said, apparently relieved. Expecting someone worse? Ryman asked, inviting himself to sit on the chair in front of Arroyo's desk. Not that there was anywhere else to go in this tiny office. I've been ending up so paranoid, you know. What? Aren't you hearing it? How am I supposed... Oh, you might have been hearing the great ones. Yeah, Arroyo said, seemingly on the verge of tears. Some hear them, some don't. Never heard anything myself. Some enjoy it, some don't. Got mainly the former group on my crew, although actually never hearing anything's the norm. So I'm surprised, Mr. Arroyo. My hypothesis has always been that it takes a lack of rationality in one's mind to actually let the prodding of the Great Ones form whole thoughts for you. Like you have to be ready to believe in a signal your senses tell you isn't real. Confusing here because it actually is real, so don't confuse this for boasting or... Well anyway, it's just a dream, think of it that way. Most affected people on this planet think it's Lud talking to them, they love it, even if it never makes any sense. Probably uses the exact same mechanism in our brains as dreams. Sorry, you know. I feel better already. Yeah, they don't really say much if you're in company or a well-lit space. That's the Great Ones for you. Don't worry, we're going to be sorting all that out. I take it you've been involved in the Academy's experiments if you've been coupled to end-space fluctuations. They are. Well, you'll see why I got swept up in it if you've come to see them. Yes, I do need to go to work, as it were. There's just one thing I wanted to ask you first. I'm not allowed to tell you. What? About the Star Witch? Oh, come on, she's got you too, does she? Professor Ryman, don't be angry at her. Or me. It's all innocent enough. Doesn't seem that way. How about I believe you when you say it's fine that I can hear a being from another universe whispering to me from the dark corners of this Lud-forsaken office, and you believe me that your transhuman lady friend is only keeping you in the dark because she cares so much about what you think about her. Is that... You don't have to put it in such a hard-to-believe way. If it's true, it's true. I might not be rational enough for you lot, but I can tell a woman who's looking after something in her heart. Right, yes. You clearly aren't rational enough for me. Tell the Great Ones I said hi. Wait, it's possible to talk back to them. Can they hear me? Ario asked as he rose from his seat, but Ryman had already retreated, red in the face. I hope you can get to the bottom of this, Professor, was the echoing call that pursued Ryman down layers of the spiral to his next meeting. He was expecting to find Baird's usual academic cabal, but only got Sebastian, sitting in a completely barren room, lit only by a genuine old-school fireplace. Ah, I get it. Very clever, Ryman said. And I was so looking forward to having to explain all this to you, Sebastian said with a smile. Computers off then. Already done. Let's go see what the Provost has for you. I think you're going to like this. Really? I'm gritting myself for more busy work or grunt treatment. No. We've got it, Noah. We've got a way to save this bloody universe. But I'm not gonna like it. Yep, goes without saying. Then Ryman and Sebastian suddenly disappeared, with a slight flickering of the fireplace. Indeed, the most vital work in saving the universe was too important to risk doing in a room accessed via a door. Ryman was transversely jumped to a dimly lit, decommissioned dredging frigate sunk deep into the muddy seabed. It's the most mathematically rich, quick-mud doom sub you could ever wish for, and in its dark, echoing halls, certain answers and certain ideas had been pieced together by an alliance of humans and AIs. From only such a miserable location can the final hope for the universe bloom, or such was Baird's cackling claim. She clearly was holding up well against the laboratory-strength dose of cabin fever the place promised. In the coming weeks, Ryman came and went from this place many times. His crew began to join him as their security clearance was slowly established by the Academy's own private investigators. Mars Nessus never got clearance due to his criminal convictions never being formally cleared by the long-extinct original IEC bureaucrats back on Volturn. Ryman's laugh on learning this was perhaps audible even through all the malodorous mud between them. As for what exactly they heard in those hidden halls, and what was agreed upon by most as a not entirely impossible plan to save the universe, let's learn about it by seeing it in action.